I'd like to welcome to the show Izzy Fairthorne. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm so good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm very excited to chat with you about a little show on Netflix. Just a little, you know what I mean? It's not like it's been number one or anything like that.
Which
Just a
one was
little.
that? I've forgotten already.
So we got to know you on Too Hot to Handle, your first trip into the world of Netflix reality, right? But then recently, obviously, we're talking about you were on Netflix's Perfect Match. How did that come about? And was there any hesitations on your part to go onto the show?
Yeah, so obviously I went on tour to Handle when I was 21. I literally flew out there during COVID. It was crazy. It was an amazing opportunity. I obviously didn't know it was tour to Handle, and then it was, and it all blew up, which was amazing. And then when the show actually came out a year later, I got contacted by Netflix, and they were like, "Hey, we loved you on tour to Handle. Do you fancy going on this other show?" And I was like, oh, heck, okay. Because I was obviously a personal trainer at the time, and that's what I was kind of doing and proceeding. And I was like, oh, looks like I'm going into reality now. So yeah, I think the hesitation was that my show had just come out, and they wanted to fly us out a month after. Um, so I obviously everything was going on and all the press stuff and events, and I was like, is it gonna affect that side of things? People are going to really know me because I won't be on my phone and I'm going to be away for 6 weeks. So that was a hesitation. And then obviously with Tilt to Handle, they kind of told us it was a different show. And so I was like, they're having me on. This is not Perfect Match. This is some like wild show that they're setting me up for again. I was like, what have I got to lose? So yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I wasn't sure of like the timeline for you because obviously like somebody like Bartiz, I had heard he like had just got done with all the Love is Blind and then came over here to this. So it was like interesting to hear it was a year ago. Like we talked about this a few minutes ago. It's crazy to think that a year has transpired since you actually filmed all of this. You know what I mean? And it's like we talk about that, but when you arrive before, let's take the audience back just a little bit, right? When you arrive in Panama City, what happens next?
Okay, so we arrive. So firstly, I hate flying, by the way, a bit out of context. They were like, right, you're flying from the UK. There's no one else flying from the UK. So you're flying by yourself. And I was like, absolutely shitting it. So we flew all the way to Panama, get there, and then we have a driver, drives us to a hotel. Um, got on really well with the driver. So that was fun. He was telling me all about Panama, everything. And then get there, and then we get met by like the Netflix team. And they're like, right, this is your room. You're going to stay in here until the show comes out. The show starts, and I was like, okay, so when does the show start? I didn't even realize we were going to be like quarantining or anything, because from what I thought we were going to go in there and the cast was just going to all start from the beginning. We'd be in there the whole time. I didn't know it was going to be like this crazy in and out, you're there, you're not, so. And then it got to the point where I think they were like, okay, the show started, and I was like, oh, okay. And they were like, okay, am I not in it? And they were like, no, you'll be coming in later, don't worry. Um, and so at this point, I was like, right, I'm just going to enjoy myself, treat it as a holiday, have a few drinks, eat some good food. But yeah, so in the meantime, I was literally just waiting in the hotel room, kind of going crazy.
We see you introduce in episode 3, obviously with the date with Nick. What happened? Obviously, we talked. Now you've been sitting here waiting. Now you finally get the call. It's like, hey, it's my turn to be on the show. What was that process like? And then going into filming the date with Nick there.
Yeah, so I literally got a call one morning, and they were like, Izzy, you're going in the show today. You've got an hour to get ready and pack all your stuff. I was like, okay, I'm just there. Like, I was going to go down to the pool and drink some drinks. Like, honestly. But yeah, so I got all my stuff ready. I was like, right, Izzy, you're going to have to get in. You're about to go on the show. You need to look good. So get all ready. And then we had the same driver drove me to the date with Nick. And then obviously I go into this spa, which is amazing. I have no idea who I'm going on a date with either. So they're just like, you're just going to have to find out. So I walk in, do my like little interviews, and then we go on this date, and it was lovely. And then that's kind of when I found out about the premises of the show, because Nick was like the first person to actually tell me, and I was like, oh, okay, this is how it's working.
Right. It's kind of crazy. You're like, all right, I'm going on this mystery date and I still don't know what this show's about. And you're like, it's kind of confusing and stuff like that. But one of the things I did like about the show, there was a lot of different being able to cycle people in and out. Like we saw that with Too Hot to Handle, but this time there's so many different familiar faces. Was there somebody on the show that you met that maybe you had seen in like on another show or something like that, and you were excited to get, to chat with and stuff like that?
Yeah, so obviously I knew all the Too Hot to Handle people except for I hadn't actually met Francesca yet. So obviously, because she was on season 1 of my show, I'd seen her and I'd watched the show. So it was very nice to see her at the start. And then Shane actually is another one because I obviously saw his come out and I'd seen all the drama with that and I was like, is he as crazy a person? Like I was so interested to find out.
Obviously your ride on Perfect Match, I think, was very wild, I guess you could say, because we went from, and it sounds awful to say it like this. When I worded it to you, I was like, this sounds weird. But after Nick, then there was Shane, and then there was Bartise, and then of course you reunited with Bartise there towards the end of the show. What was the experience like with the men, but then on the overall show, and how was the show kind of what you expected, and kind of like that?
So for me, what I expected was that because it was obviously Perfect Match, we'd done a lot of questionnaires to kind of find out what we liked and who we'd end up with. So I was like, this is genuine. We're going to try and find our match. And then when I got in there, I was kind of thinking, are people playing games or are we like being genuine? Like what's going on here? Because it was just so crazy and people were mixing and matching. For me personally, obviously I went in with Nick, ended up matching with Shane. And then I had that decision to make with who was I going to go for, Nick or Shane. And to be honest, I'm not very good I can't fake anything, like my true feelings. So I was like not feeling it really with Nick or Shane at that point because me and Shane had an argument and Bartise came in and I was like, he is my type, like we've just got on. So I was like, I mean, the easy option would be to stay with someone I was already with. But I just thought I'm going to go with what I wanted to do. And then obviously it shook things up a bit, but not sure if it was the right choice either, but
So what's it like watching the show back?
Wow. I think my jaw was like wide open the whole time because obviously I wasn't there for the first bit, right? So when I watched it back, all the drama, I couldn't believe it because no one really speaks about what happened before. You have a few comments about, they were matched with each other, but you don't hear the details. So when I watched it back, I was shocked. I loved watching it. I was like hooked to it. But it was crazy seeing what happened before I got in there. And then obviously there was a stage where I left and everything was going on and I came back in. Right. And I didn't know what had happened when I'd been gone. So there's that as well, because you kind of come in, you're like, woo, like I just remember from when I was there, but all this stuff had happened since. But yeah.
All right. So the question I find, and it's interesting to me because you have all these reality shows, you have the Love is Blind, the Too Hot to Handles, the Perfect Matches. The idea of finding love or your perfect match, do you think it can happen on a reality show?
So for me, when I went on, I went on being like, this is amazing. Like, imagine if I go on a show and I come out and I like find the love of my life, that would be great. Like, that is the ideal situation, right? I think it's hard because, for example, you're on a TV show, it's reality, but it's not real life. You're not in your working day jobs. You're not seeing the flaws of everyone. You're on holiday. You're having a good time. And then to remove that and put yourself in the normal world is tough. And no matter if you love someone on the show or not, and you have this genuine connection, to put that into the real world is so difficult. And I think that's why, everyone's really disappointed about the couples not being together. And I don't think it's impossible for people to stay on afterwards, but I think it's tough. It's a tough ride to go from this crazy experience to living your normal lives again.
Yeah, it's people forget that it's like that honeymoon bubble, right? You know what I mean? Like you're in this bubble, it's just you, and there's no friends, there's no family. It's like watching Love is Blind, basically. You know what I mean? You find each other, you connect, but then when you add the element of your everyday life, this is what this person's like. And I think with you, obviously, with you being based in another country, do you think that kind of hinders possibly finding a perfect match? Because you're on a show where people are from all over the place, right?
Yeah, I think for me at the time, you don't think of that. You think, I'm just here to find this connection and see where it goes. And then towards the end, I remember me and Bartise went on our final dates and we were kind of like, so what now? Like he's in Dallas and I'm in Manchester in the UK. Like his show hadn't come out yet, I don't think either. And we weren't traveling. Like I was going back to my job, he was going back to his job. When were we going to find time to see each other? And we weren't in a relationship then either. So it was just, it is difficult. And I think by the end of it, I was kind of like, well, is it possible to make this work? You know, long distance, 2 hours is hard enough, yet alone flying halfway across the country, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't even imagine. Like sometimes I watch these, even like watching Two Up the Handle or some of these other shows, at least the Love and Blinds are set in one city. You know what I mean? Like you're all in the same city. This is a little bit different. Another question for you is, what's something you learned about yourself throughout the ride on Perfect Match?
I think for me, I think I learned a lot about myself actually. In terms of being in the show, I think staying true to myself was important, because there were times where I kind of thought to myself, like, do I take the risk or not? And I did take the risk, and I have no regrets on that. And I think some people could look back on kind of what I did and my experience and think, oh, I shouldn't have gone for Bartiz, or I should have stuck with someone. But I did stay true to myself, and I learned that that's a good thing. It is a good thing, although it can cause some drama. It is good to stay true to yourself. I also think like there was a lot of comments about me being younger and things like that, but I also learned that if you have a kind of a problem with someone, you should voice it. And I think not just me doing that, but just seeing other people and not being kind of, is bitchy the right word, and saying it behind people's back and just being really upfront. I think that was another thing. And in terms of like, obviously the premise of the show, finding your perfect match, I think it was just kind of like, it will come eventually, and like you're fine. It doesn't matter. Like it's going to come at some point.
But all right, so the complete show, it's over. What are you working on now? What's ahead for Izzy into this next phase of your life after the second show here?
So obviously I'm sticking to doing my online personal training business. My kind of thing for social media is on TikTok, I have the funny side, and I love that side. But Instagram is more kind of promoting health and fitness, and I'm continuing to do that and posting what I believe is happy and true, and hoping other people feel the same. So that's pushing on that. And in terms of kind of shows and things like that, I'd say I'd want to do like a competitive show, like for example, like The Challenge, or I think I've done enough dating shows. Like I think everyone can say that. Maybe it hasn't worked out for me. So something more competitive, and just so I can show that side of me as well.
I think it would be fun. Like, I mean, I know we already have The Challenge per se, but like a Netflix version of The Challenge would be a blast, right? You know what I mean?
Amazing. So competitive though. And especially with the kind of, not conflicts, but drama at the moment, putting us on a challenge show, that would be insane.
It would be, because you have, I mean, it's must watch, you know, even you saying like you watch the show back, and obviously not being on every aspect of it, like you're watching with your eyes glued to the television, like you can't turn it off. And that's what attracts a lot of people to the show. But Izzy, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure chatting with you. And where can everybody find you on social media before we go? I want to get that out there.
Yeah, so guys, on Instagram, I'm at Izzy Fair. On TikTok, at Izzy Fairthorne. So that's where I use most of my social media and promote my business and things like that.